Hello and welcome to Stratfest Meet the Festival for A Midsummer Night's Dream. My name is Stephanie Johns and I'm Education Associate in the Education Department at the Stratford Festival. And I'm honored to be able to be here to join Trish Lindström and André Sills this morning to discuss A Midsummer Night's Dream, theater, and their careers. As always, during Meet the Festival events, we love to hear from you and answer your burning questions in the chat. So please make sure you add them in the YouTube chat and we will get to as many as we can. But before we begin in earnest, I want to take a few moments to recognize the land. I'm currently in my home in Stratford, Ontario, on the original territory of the Anishinaabe, the Arawonderan, or Neutrals, and the Mississaugas. I'm grateful every day to the caretakers of this land, and I encourage you at home to research the land on which you reside, and consider the impact that you have on the land and the peoples who have come before you. So I'm now going to introduce these lovely artists. And if they weren't so accomplished, like the intros wouldn't be so long, but I'm just saying it's going to be good. So Trish Lindstrom, she plays Puck and Aegeus in A Midsummer Night's Dream this year. This is her 6th season here at the festival. You may recognize her from other Stratford productions, such as You Like It, when she played Celia, which was one of my favorite productions. I went and saw it 6 or 7 times. I loved it. I purposely sat in the aisle where you climbed over people. It was great. Sorry, side note. She was in The Hypochondriac. She was Alice in Alice Through the Looking Glass. She was Titania and Hermia in A Midsummer Night's Dream, a chamber play. Miranda in The Tempest. The Two Gentlemen of Verona. Sally Bowles in Cabaret. Trojan Women. And Helen Keller in The Miracle Worker. Selected other works include the first U.S. national tour of Summer, the Donna Summer musical, Mother Night for 59E59, Wedding Party for Crow's Theatre, the NAC and TIFT, Life After for Can Stage, Once for Mirvish, Children of God for Urban Inc. and NAC, Bloodless for Theatre 20, In the Next Room for Tarragon, various productions for Soul Pepper, Assassins, for Birdland and TIFT, and Mimi for Tarragon. Trish worked at the Shaw Festival in a lot of shows from 2003 to 2007. Trish's film and television work include The Hot Zone, Frankie Drake, Dorothy's Secret, Jack in the Box, and Murdoch Mysteries. She has earned 2 Dora Award nominations and 1 for Once for Mirvish. She received her training at NTS and the Actors Center in New York City. So that is the lovely Trish Lindstrom. On my screen, she's here. And then we have André Sills, who plays Bottom in A Midsummer Night's Dream. This is André's 7th season here at the festival. He played the title role in Coriolanus that you probably saw either the film or in person a few years ago, and was also in The Tempest and Napoli Millionaria that season, as well as many, many others. At the Shaw Festival, past productions include Glass Menagerie, Sex, The Madness of George III, An Octoroon, The Adventures of a Black Girl in Her Search for God. His work elsewhere also includes Julius Caesar for Crows and Groundling, Master Harold and the Boys for Shaw and Obsidian, Kim's Convenience National Tour with Soul Pepper, various productions for Obsidian Theatre, Intimate Apparel for Alberta Theatre Projects, and The Grand, Othello and Radio Golf for St. Louis Black Repertory Company. André received his training through the Birmingham Conservatory at the festival and George Brown Theatre School. He has received many awards, including a My Entertainment World Critics Pick Award, Best Leading Actor in an Octoroon, Toronto Theatre Critics Award, and a Dora Award for Best Leading Actor in Master Harold and the Boys. You can also check out his new web series on YouTube called Private Idiots. Sorry about that. And welcome to both of you, and thank you so much for joining me today. So now we can give a small round of applause.
Well done, Stephanie.
A little warm now, but that's okay. So my first question for both of you is, can you articulate for us how it feels to be back performing on a stage after such a long hiatus?
I just started laughing. Trish, thoughts?
So how it feels, a lot of feelings, including rusty. It feels rusty a little, exhilarating. My scene partners are, of course, on stage, but largely the audience. And it's been exhilarating and also very challenging because we we have a very small house and people are socially distanced, so it creates a very different audience dynamic. The other thing that's very interesting is performing outdoors, which I've done. I did when I was 17 at a theme park. Haven't done that since, but how the energy gets entirely dispersed. And I was speaking to a friend outdoors yesterday, and I just said, how different it would feel if we were in a cafe having the same conversation, that there's an intimacy that is inevitably, it's not that it's not there, but it's just a different kind of different quality of intimacy. Uh, but in terms of going back to your question, because I could just talk for hours about this experience, but I'm elated, I'm overwhelmed, I'm sad. There's a grief that comes with this time, but at the end of the day, I just feel like I'm trying to just take it all in and appreciate it for what it is, because it's a relatively short time that we get to do this. So.
Yeah, I agree 100% about, like, there's so many things happening right now with trying to process being back, and also realizing that our actor bodies are, well, how I feel, are out of shape. But like, it really becomes apparent when, I guess, you're thrown outside into the elements, and the need to, yeah, our tent holds 100 people, but the space in which they are in, it's still a pretty vast space. So yeah, what Trish is saying about the intimacy is like, yeah, that's not a lot of people, but the space that needs to be filled to tell our story still requires a lot of energy. So the dynamic of playing on the stage with the elements and all that sort of stuff, as I'm saying, the actor body is out of shape. You're just seeing how much it takes to reach everyone, and yeah, just that effort alone, and then trying to put the storytelling on top of that is a lot. So I'm grateful for the time that we've had to get there, and we are, this is the beginning stage of getting people back into the theater. So it's nice to have the interaction between us and the audience, but it is slightly different because everybody is still socially distanced. So, like, the one thing that some of our voice coaches will say is like sometimes in the theater you can feel the audience breathing as one, and experiencing the whole show as one. But because everybody is in their own little pods watching, the collective breath is like a multitude of little collectives breathing amongst themselves. So it's a different energy of the give and take is slightly different than what it normally is. So they're still there. Like you can see that they're still there, but the collective experience is slightly different.
Right.
Yeah, they're also partially masked. So there are people that are choosing to understandably wear their masks. And when you cannot, as we know from this last year, when you cannot see somebody's mouth, a smile is like, are they wheezing because they've got like indigestion, or are they laugh? Like, is it a funny moment, or is it like something itches that they don't want to scratch? So it's a guessing game. And in that way, it keeps it live. Like, I mean, that's what we do. It's very, it's different to have a a show in the daylight, in the stark daylight, where I'm kind of doing something that I thought, oh, this may be humorous, and then I look at it as like, I can see everyone's and often people have a default frown. Like, there's all kinds of default faces that humans have been gifted with, and so it falls right into the pit of my deepest insecurity of like, oh, tell the joke, like nobody's interested, but they're interested. It's just when you have the house lights out, when the audience often in a theater is blacked out, it can make it a little bit easier to kind of look out and not looking at individuals and their individual reactions. But that said, we can also feel in a theater when the energy is not quite with us, or when the laugh, it's not quite landing. But anyway, it's fascinating.
But it's also like people being in a public space again too for maybe like the first time. So it's just like, as we're experiencing the how do we do this coming back, I think the audience is in the same sort of boat of like, how do we do this coming back? To the point where, yes, the sunlight or the daylight outside is just like, yeah, I see you, you see me. So that sort of exchange of like the vulnerability of like us sharing and receiving from them, it's also the audience receiving but also sharing with us as so that sort of dynamic of like, yeah, I see you there. Yeah, I see you seeing me. So it's an interesting thing of that particular dynamic of coming out of isolation back into a room with other people, other strangers, and feeling free enough to laugh, to express some sort of emotion in public. So it's an interesting experiment that's happening right now.
I love what you said, and I know that you want to get to your questions, but about the being seen, seeing and being seen, like the act of actually being seen, because I think like that's really what our jobs, the foundation of our jobs is opening enough, being present enough so that we let people in just by breathing and the tools that we have as actors, but as humans, it is a very interesting exchange to see how people's relationship with being seen as well. And so that's what we're faced with every day, which is a beautiful thing too. It's like it's a very, very particular time in history to be doing this and to be witnessing people who, for the most part, have a love of theater. If they're kind of the one of the 100 people that get to see it each day, that's it's a real treat.
I think also for the audience members, because I got to see your show and I got to see a couple of the cabarets, it's like, oh, we get this chance again. And we're just so excited. And I think it's learning how to be a good audience member again, because yeah, we've been on our couches in our sweatpants and like with Cheetos on our chest. Like it's just like chilling and just doing what we want, but remembering, okay, let's sit up, let's have energy to give the actors energy so that we as audiences get the best from them. And like it's a trade-off. And I also noticed myself smiling, like I already am a smiley person, but like trying to be even smilier, because I know you can't tell if I'm smiling or not. I'm going to have, after COVID, like I'm going to have the deepest smile lines, but that's okay. It just means I'm happy. But yeah, I think it's just it's a relearning for us too, even though we're audience members, right? Ooh, we have a question from the chat. Oh, Louise is back. Hello, Louise. So Louise is wondering, roles like Coriolanus and Bottom are very different. Is there a different pre and post show routine to get into and out of character? And do you prefer serious or funny roles? So combo question there.
Good question. Well, I guess like I've been in Dream a couple of times, but I've never done this particular track. And when it came my way, I was like, huh, never. It was a part of, like, I guess in my mind, it's like I never thought it would come my way. So when it did, it was like, huh, okay. So really trying to figure out how to do it. So the and backing up to Coriolanus, it's like, yeah, the warrior. I kind of understand those guys. And then this track was just kind of like, how do I do this? And like, I guess my whole thing for this is like, I was a stickler for this throughout rehearsals, like, what is Bottom's actual journey? Because I guess thinking back to the other times that I've either been in it or seen it, I just recall it being like, yeah, he comes in, he's funny, and then the play is done. But I was like, what is his journey? What is he? Well, what about him in the first part of the play either needs to be changed, that the only thing that does it is this experience with this fairy queen goddess of a creature, that on the other side of it, it's a new person. So yeah, for me, it always comes down to the storytelling of like, what is it, what is it about this guy that needs to be changed? So that was my question that was kind of nagging in my head the entire time. But it is a bit of a different experience between like, yeah, Coriolanus of like the warrior battling it out, but Bottom at the same time is like, oh, let me play the tyrant. And what's funny is that the boots that I'm wearing for Bottom are my Coriolanus bloody boots. So Coriolanus is still slightly there off the top, and it's a cool sort of thing to know in the back of my head, is like, yeah, let me play that guy again. He was a lot of fun. Let me get up there and just tear the world apart. It's so cool to just bounce back and forth between the world of the tragedies and the comedies, but like also at the same time figuring out for us as a play is like, when is this play a comedy? Or is it definitely that, or is it unknown until a certain point? And because if Demetrius and the lovers wake up and Aegeus is like, hey, they tried to run away, and if Demetrius at that moment said, yeah, you're right, I still want Hermia, a very different play comes out on the other end. So yeah, but at this particular time, coming out of COVID, yeah, the tragedies for me would have been interesting, but I think at this particular point in time, to have the joy of of this particular journey of this man being transformed into this ridiculous creature, but coming through it, there's an immense amount of joy, immense amount of love, and like for me personally, I feel like that was more of what I needed at this particular time. I'm not saying I don't want to do any tragedies anymore, but at this particular time, I think Bottom came at the right time.
Awesome. And a question that kind of comes out of that for me is, what about this play is needed during this time in history? Like, why now? Why is this something that we should have on our stages, in your opinion?
Any thoughts?
I mean, it's a great question always for art. Art is an expression. I think that the need to be present. I mean, it's hard to speak about the play dramaturgically, I find always, because I'm inside of it. And I can kind of say a pat thing of, oh, it's a fantastical, you read the program notes and it's a very astute observation from Anthony and from our director, Peter Pasek. But I think that if I were to kind of just speak from my own experience, inside of it, connection is needed, I think, right now, always. But when I am feeling most joy is when I feel like I'm connecting with my people on the stage and with the crowd. like a genuine human connection, and it's not on a screen, and it's not there's not a lot of bells and whistles in our show. It's it's imagination. It's live, so that things are going to go wrong, and we're very pointed about having those be obvious and not hiding. Like Craig Lawson is playing Oberon, and he's just love this man. He's the man who I have most of my scenes with as Puck, and we have often some throwing things, and I often maybe won't catch the things, and there'll be him saying nice catch, like it's all happening. And I think that's something titillating, because we've been inundated with beautiful TV series on various networks that are clean and crisp, and I think that the beauty of this is being live, and again, like being seen, being out there, and how that relates to this particular play. Imagination, love, um high stakes. It's still high stakes. The play doesn't, like we say, like, is it a comedy? I mean, as a GS, I'm about to have my daughter executed if she doesn't choose the man that I've chosen for her. So it's not funny. And it definitely speaks to the stakes of this time in a way. So uh, the short answer is, I need theater because I need human connection, live human connection. And I felt the drought of that intensely, socially, but artistically. And I think that it's innate in human beings to feel all kinds of serotonin levels rise when we're around other people, and to witness a story together, to share a live story. There's nothing else like it.
Mm-hmm. Do you have anything you want to add, André?
Yeah, it's trying to find love again was, I guess, part of our journey. And like in a world where there's so much mess, and yeah, finding a way to connect, to speak to each other. Yes, people disagree, but finding a way back to connect, to love, to not trying to go from, like, for Bottom's journey, and not trying to, like, I can do everything, to like, let's work this out together. Let's share the stage together, as opposed to, let me run the show. Let me just, I'll play everything, and giving everybody a voice, and like coming back to the one thing I've been talking about a lot is just like working as a team. And I feel like it's one thing that we've been able to do with our cast. There's only 8 of us, so and we have our 4 lovers, who are also 4 lovers / mechanical / fairies. So I only have to play one part, which is great. But like those folks have been working their butts off the entire time, and what an opportunity it's been for them to really get up there and shine, and have this amazing challenge thrown at them. And they're really doing an amazing job. And yeah, and it comes down to like working as a team and seeing how hard those 4 are working. Anytime I come on the stage, I just want to help support them and give them enough to play off, to either surprise them and shock them, or and just keep playing. And yeah, and like getting that sort of energy again has been so amazing.
Awesome. And that kind of leads into one of our audience questions from Bruce. He's asking, how difficult has it been to work within your own production bubble? Because it is such a small 8-person cast, and then also to adapt as the province does keep moving into looser restrictions. So have there been big challenges, or has it been like, oh, this is easy, I can do this?
Sorry. No.
It's a good question, Bruce, because you recognize that we've really been at the mercy of the government through the entire process. We started on Zoom. We didn't know if we would do the show. When everything else was opening up and live performance wasn't, we were like, and so there was petition, like, thankfully so, people, artists rallied, live musicians rallied and said, what gives? We are under the safest circumstances here. We are the ones we've lost our jobs, so we're not taking chances in terms of safety and COVID, protocols. Our numbers are nil for cases, and for good reason, because our livelihood depends on this. So it's not like a factory where you have these numbers and then the factory keeps going. Like, we will be shut down if we have numbers. But schedule wise, it's been a challenge. Maybe André can speak more to that, kind of the Zoom days, and then the rehearsing outdoors with masks days and the heat and all that.
Yeah, I guess, like, for me, like, getting the offers, like, yeah, so we're going to be in person when we arrive at May 20th. And I think it was that week was the week that the province released the 3 steps to unlocking. And like, we were like, what does that mean? Because if that first step, we still can't meet and rehearse in person. So we started on Zoom, and the one thing I found interesting was my actor buddy started to, like, kind of freak out a little bit, because here we are doing Shakespeare, and it's one thing to kind of like do a Zoom reading of a play, because like you read the play and then that's it, but your body's been preparing to get out there and do it. And then when we're in this sort of setting, I started to shut down, and almost like my body was just kind of like freaking out and just kind of like, this is what we signed up for, and wanting to just like stay calm. So I just kind of like listen, and I find myself kind of like very distracted. I was like, oh, there's an interesting thing. What was that? Yeah. And then we're like back to the, trying to keep myself energized, but there was so much happening inside at the same time. And then 3 weeks later, it was like, yes, leading to step 2, we can meet in person. Let's get everybody in for our first, well, that wasn't our first COVID test, but that was one before our actual start day. And then being out in the archives parking lot with tents over there, a smaller tent than the canopy, but still being subject to the elements. And that day there is a massive thunderstorm that like blew down, destroyed like some of the tents that were there. So it was like, are you sure we shouldn't be doing King Lear for this year? Because it was crazy, like destruction. And then, next day coming back, they had rejigged things, and then it became, yes, we're in person, now we're in mask, but we're also outside in the heat and the humidity with the masks on, the ability to breathe, to try and speak text, and you're running around. And there was times when I was like, I'm a sweater, so like I would sweat and get into the mask, and then like bottom gets a little rowdy, he gets on a roll, and then I was like, I'm gonna sing a song now, and then all of a sudden it's just like deep breath. I can't breathe, so like body's freaking out, and it's like, how do we do this again? and then I guess when we moved to the space, the actual canopy, like and then the rules there was like, okay, once you're on stage, you can take your masks off. And then, so we're starting working out that dynamic and seeing each other's faces again. And then we're like, okay, now, and it was only, okay, so remembering from, we were in Zoom, not meeting in person. Then we were meeting in person, rehearsing outside with masks. And then when we get to the canopy tent, then when we're on stage, we can take the masks off and rehearse the play. And then for the first time after being on stage, and then when Red Sisters had to come in afterwards and have some time on stage, we moved inside for the first time. And then after rehearsing the play on stage without a mask, now that we're inside, we have to put masks back on. And then, so it's just like, your body's trying to navigate how you do the play, how you've been doing the play, and now that the elements are different, now there's different things happening. So it was a bit of like my body was freaking out the most of the time. So when we got back outside just to be able to do this show, like it felt at ease, not at ease, but I guess a little bit more at home. So it's been a lot of this, of ups and downs, and just trying to figure out how to go day to day. And it was such a day-to-day experience of like so many unknown variables that would change from one day to the next. So we have 2 shows left, one today and one tomorrow, but we're still standing. And we have a show. We've been able to have an audience, and we filmed it yesterday. And yeah, so we've almost made it.
And I think successfully, you've almost made it. Like it's a beautiful show. I kind of want to go off of that. So to speak maybe to the differences between performing for strictly the audience outside in the elements, like you've been doing, versus yesterday and when you're performing in front of the cameras and audience, what differences arise, how are you feeling when you're up there? And I know, Trish, I don't know if have you been part of a filmed theater performance before? Yeah, so you both have experience in that way. So how did it kind of change for you yesterday, or if at all?
Oh, I found it very challenging. The first show, we had an 11 a.m. and then a 3 p.m. The 11 a.m. was very challenging for me. What was cool was I start the show lying under a sheet. So I get to kind of just be there. And there was a spider yesterday. It was great. It was like, it's fun. It's my own little world. It's like scuba diving, my own little world under there. And Anthony was riling the crowd to kind of get the the curtain call, like the applause, the standing ovation at the top of the show, so that they could record that and have that for later. To have that to start a show is like, wow! My whole body was like, oh, like I felt like a child. I was like, thanks. Like I'm lying there like drooling. I got tears because it's allergies. I'm like, oh my god, this is so great. And then we start, and I do this prologue where, and the reaction was very minimal because half the crowd wasn't there because it was fractured because of the cameras. Mm-hmm. So the expectation was like, oh man, this is gonna be wow. And then like. So again, like the volume turned way down on the crowd, and we're like, oh, okay. And the other thing about, I tried to remember because I had some friends out there seeing the show in the company, and to do the show for the live human versus doing the show for the nameless, like faceless, however many humans that are going to watch live theater on the screen after. And there's a big difference in the body. Like the body knows that there's a camera there. And I got really in my head. I got very self-conscious. I did The Tempest, was filmed, and the late Christopher Plummer was able to kind of a master at adapting his performance, not probably consciously even, because his master, he just kind of was able to kind of bring that to a place where it's so watchable on screen. But that's that's very tricky. And what we were told was like, no, we just do our show and it happens to be filmed. Um, but I guess like anyone would relate is having a camera versus a person speaking to, even right now, speaking to a camera versus if you were all in a crowd. We used to do these at the TP, is like it's a very different I can't quite articulate what it is, but the body knows there's something different. So I found it very. But second show, I just went, oh, who cares? Just do it, and whatever. Anyway, that was my experience.
Yeah, like it's the one thing, like even like I guess the first one well, not the first one I did. My first one that was a big one for me was Coriolanus. And like I remember showing up early that day just to see what the setup was for where the cameras were. And like that particular setup was like, oh, they're like right under the balcony, propped up, and there's like cameras everywhere. I was like, okay, so good to see that before. And did the same thing yesterday, showing up early just to see what the particular setup was going to be. And it was like, oh, like it's a big setup. And then the one thing I like coming back inside is just like, hey, young folk, new guys, go look now, so that like it's so, because there is a pressure. It's like, ooh, it's filming day. It's filming day, and it's like an opening day. It's like opening. No matter how many previews you've done, you get to opening, and there's still an opening day pressure. And it was kind of the same. Like I was trying to figure out with myself. It's like, have I cemented all of my choices that will be cemented as of filming? But yeah, just getting out there to see where the cameras are going to be, how many cameras, where the audience is going to be, and and getting out there and seeing that first before walking out on stage as the show starts, to just be, oh, experience that for the first time can like really take you out. So yeah, I think it was just like me just getting out there, clocking it, and then also trying to remind myself is like, just trust the show that you have, and let's just tell the story that we've created. And like I'm telling myself this, and it's not like patting myself on the back. It's like, yes, you have a great. It's like, no, trust what you have, and don't necessarily change anything. Tell the story, and these are things I'm telling myself, and just trusting it. Reminding myself to trust it.
It's such a huge, but I'm just having the absence from a lot of this work, not in total absence, but the confidence and trust is such a huge player. It's, to me, it's like 90% of it is yeah, you do the work, but then go trust yes, we've done the work. So our work, a show that feels not so great to us will be a very different. I mean, people are seeing it for the first time. It's not going to be that for them. Yep. And the other thing I really want to highlight is the film crew. It's a company called Suede, and the director Nick was so prepared. They were so well prepared. They had watched an archival. They had I'm sure there were 8, because there were 8 actors, 8 camera. They had tracked the entire journey. I can't wait to see. Just, they're masters at this, and it is live, and these camera people were able to just, I could feel their energy kind of in just front-footed, like it really excited. So I do look forward to seeing their work, because it was as much a live experience for them as it was for us. And there's no 3 takes. yeah, one show is one, they're on one side, the other show they're on the other side. We did some pickups, but it was not, you know, rehearsed with camera with us. Yeah.
Sort of going off that, but not really. How do each of you feel about the behind the scenes stuff being exposed to the audience the whole time? So like the costume changes and all of the props and the music and things like that. What sort of challenges have been presented through that? Or have you enjoyed doing, like, having those things out in the open? Kind of what's your take on that?
I don't know. Half of the time, I don't see the changes. Like walking on, there's one moment where Eva Foot is on stage. Lysander has just left, and she's woken up from her dream where she almost got eaten by a snake. She leaves the stage. I run on, and I feel like when I turn around and see her next, she's dressed as Snug. Mm-hmm. So it's strange. I'm working really fast, and I don't know. I feel like it's become part of the show, and they are like, I basically have one costume and then like different formations of it. But like, you know, Trish has to go back and forth between Puck and Aegeus a little bit, and I don't know. I feel like for me at least, most of them I don't really clock, because I guess the energy of the next scene is coming on and taking the focus, and yeah, the story continues. So by the time that person who is off stage changing, when they're taking the stage next to speak their line, they're already transformed into the next person. So that's also part of the magic of the show, of the transformation of a person from scene to scene. Yeah, so it's interesting to be in it and just still be surprised by that. Oh, you're done already. Oh, hey, Snug. Or hey, you know, Francis Flute and all these guys, and yeah, it's so cool. It's so cool, and I'm loving that particular magic of our show.
I find it very challenging. I've been a little bit selfish. I'm like, I kind of talk away when I do my changes, because there's a thing, I much prefer being in front of an audience, not as myself, so that the costume often works as a mask, as the wig does, any kind of beige, like I asked for like a big ring that I would never I wouldn't wear unless I was going to a Halloween party, but just something that feels like it's not me. So I feel much more comfortable in that way. Whereas I have friends that are masters at the art of cabaret, for instance, that they're up there as themselves, kind of doing the in between, you know, chit chat. And I find that much more challenging. I would much prefer to be somebody else, to be in front of people. A lot of actors are introverts, and I don't know what I am in that regard, but you know, there's a persona obviously that I'm even inhabiting right now to kind of show up. But I do like to do those. I do most of my changes in this little hole, crouched down, and that's maybe why I pulled a rib. But because it's also my moment, my time to kind of recollect the energy. But I'm just so in awe of our team that does that in front of, you know, the focus. It requires a focus of, I know I'm being watched, but don't watch. There's action going on, so it's like throwing focus. Well, they're kind of, and I feel them kind of. I feel that focus. It has to be that, versus just like, you know, change. There's a way to change it from one person to another. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure they have it would be a good question for the Four Lovers. They have their own process, I'm sure, to kind of switch gears. But it's also fun because for me, like, I mean, the hat, feeling the hat, like it's like a switch that's turned on from one person to the other. And Aegeus, like the glasses, or just feeling I've got the bald pate. It's like I don't have to do much and the picture is created. Lorenzo, brilliant costume designer Lorenzo Savini, just turns us into other people.
Awesome. So we have Louise again. So this production has more explicit sexual content than many other productions of A Midsummer Night's Dream. Did the cast have input into how scenes were presented?
Great question.
Let me think. Well, I guess for the, again, I can only speak to the Bottom Titania experience. And like the one thing that I felt really blessed with is being able to have Bahari Yaragi as my Titania. And Bahari and I have worked a bunch in Toronto with the Actors Repertory Company, and so we've, even before we started and understanding that the sexual aspect of the show, like being able to reach out to her beforehand and just kind of like touch base and be like, what are we comfortable with each other? So to try and have like a baseline set even before we started was, I think, important, and you know, just so that we have that trust with each other, so that we can either put a suggestion on the table and be like, what do you think about that? And bring it to the director. Like there was one moment of, there's the silk orgy. But like there is a moment of Bottom and Titania's second scene starts right after. So trying to figure out how we as the four lovers are climaxing, how are Bottom and Titania doing that as well. And Peter had an interesting offer of let's make it strange. So whatever's coming out of our what is the umbrella thing called? The bower. Whatever's happening in the bower, the feet that are coming out, we don't quite understand what's happening in there, but they seem to be enjoying themselves. So making things strange and weird, but at the same time finding the intimacy of this experience of this magical creature who wants to be with him. Again, it comes down to the storytelling, right? So the voyeurism of Oberon watching in our production his plan kind of backfire on him, as she seems to really be enjoying herself with this donkey man creature. And I think for us, the two of us as actors, to be able to have that trust and to the point where we can take big risks to show a level of intimacy, to allow that story to translate and ripple on through the others into the audience, of like either being scandalized by being included in this. But yeah, it was, I think it comes down to that level of trust. And yes, we have to be able to find a way to take risks. But yeah, finding the trust with your acting partner, with your director, and trying to find the story that you want to tell was, I think, the most important thing that we're trying to nail down.
Yeah, I don't feel like there's anything gratuitous in this production that's kind of doing sex for sex sake at all. It's all for the storytelling. And if I think about the programs that are shown on TV, like this is nothing. It's the difference being, it's a play that people know quite well, maybe most well-known Shakespeare. And so they have such ingrained, whether they know it or not, it's such ingrained ideas of what it was. in also perhaps like a more traditional sense. In so many ways, we're trying to kind of challenge the structure and the shape and the culture around Shakespeare. Is going, well, what is the story? It doesn't have to be Victorian. We don't have to be wearing, right, that at the heart of it, it's stories of love, betrayal, um, jealousy. Those are human. Those are based, and that's why these stories carry through centuries later. And in terms of our production, uh, for the certainly the Puck journey of orchestrating this orgy, so to speak, and then getting to immediately flip to Aegeus and saying this is repulsive, so that you get to have, there are characters that are relating perhaps to audience members going, this is just, and and also the permission to kind of, we've been isolated for over a year, and I know our director Peter Pasek was saying this is, how titillating to have like physical intimacy, and that it's okay, and yes, it's okay to feel uncomfortable, it's okay to laugh, it's okay to feel, but also like an awakening of like, which our culture is also in the midst of doing, is things aren't so taboo anymore. It's going, well, let's not have sex be this frightening thing behind closed doors, that we shouldn't be, that there's play, there can be joy and play around it. And ultimately, like Andre said, serving the story, and I think it does it. I think it does it really, really well, and playfully and respectfully. And there's nothing that's done that anybody felt like, we did have discussions where we said, I don't feel, why this, and we had those, and so Peter backed it all. It wasn't kind of like, oh, just because it's cute. It's like, it's nothing like that. It was all very, a long process of thinking through these decisions of when a dildo, and well, actually the dildo at the, yeah, like there are things I go, oh, I was like, yes, please, again, I need to have a dildo at the end. Well, I do. I have an epilogue. If we've offended, just
Yeah.
pretend you were in a dream, which is
Yeah.
it's kind of the perfect way to kind of oh, sorry for the dildo, but just pretend you were sleeping and it was a dream, because I know you each and every one of you have had this dream anyway.
And that part, that like when the lovers stood up with the blanket or with the sheet and trying to cover themselves up, I couldn't even see it. Like I couldn't see Amaka at all. And then as they started moving off the stage, I was like, oh, and it was just so funny. And it was, yeah, one of those things as the audience member where you're just like, this is great. And then you come out with it later. It's beautiful. We have a couple more questions and then we'll be wrapping up. So how do you feel that having worked through this roller coaster of a season, including the pandemic, working outdoors, unpredictability, might impact your future performance choices, if at all?
I don't know. Like for me, I think it comes down to the project, and I think, and for me, it's always been about the challenges, and as I said, like Bottom was something that I wasn't on my radar because I wasn't sure if people would see me like that. Like as like I remember thinking back, it's like I would have loved to have played Romeo, but at the time I don't think people saw me as that. So coming to Bottom and having that opportunity, it was just kind of like, I don't know if I can do that. But when I say that, that's when I'm like, but I'm gonna try, because it's the challenge, and the challenge of it is what is interesting to me, of seeing a project that is going to cost me to delve into, to try and figure out what makes this particular human being tick, from moment to moment, and that's what's been the amazing thing about parts that scare me, is just, I don't know if I can do it, but the challenge of stepping into it, to making big choices in the rehearsal hall and falling flat in your face. It's like, okay, that didn't work, so let's try something else. So I think continuing on from here, it's still going to be for me is, what is the challenge? Can I do it? If I know I can do that, sure, that sounds great. But giving me an opportunity that's like, I don't know, because I've never really either thought of myself doing that particular journey, but taking it on would be interesting.
I found there's like a resilience that built maybe from the pandemic, probably, that there's nothing. I shouldn't say there's nothing. There's very little more to lose. That we had lost so in terms of the work, everything, and not knowing, and we still don't know. So when the grumbling comes and the grumpiness comes, I'm finding that my resilience to just let that go is a little bit more sharp than ever, and I know that that will carry through. Just not taking it for granted to be hired, because there are so many actors that are out of work right now, so many performers and crew that have lost their jobs. And so to be here speaking with you is a massive, massive gift that as soon as, it is the human nature to kind of become comfortable in it and go, oh, why did they serve me? There's a hair in my meal. It's like, to actually have a meal brought to a table, like, so that there's all kinds of gratitude that's born out of this, and I'm trying to kind of keep that and actively practice, not just as pay lip service to this. Oh, I'm grateful. It's like, no, but really going, oh my goodness, that this offer came out of the blue to come back to this place that I consider so much my home, is just, it's miraculous, and I do think, that carries forward. Even where all of us are auditioning right now and just going, well, it can be very challenging to just continually do these job interviews, but to go, to have the opportunity to act, to have the opportunity to audition, even that there's not a lot of work to go around, and so it's a real privilege.
Yeah, I find myself being, I don't have to be mad about that. It happened. I've just kind of got to that point in my head, and I feel like it's a nice feeling to kind of be there now and not be so mad about the things that really don't matter.
Yeah.
I think I have one more question and then we'll wrap up. So what is it? Oh, this is from Nicole. What is it like performing in a play with so many speaking roles when the cast only consists of 8 people?
I don't know. I feel like with Shakespeare, we kind of do this a lot of, I can remember doing a production of Dream years ago where there was only 4 people. So that was cut down to an hour. But, I think for a place like this, the Stratford Festival, where I think the last time I did it here in 2009, there was probably maybe 25 people in it. So, to really try and focus it down. And as I say, with those four lovers, mechanical fairies, I can't speak for them, but I'm in awe of them, of all that they've done. And I think they've done such a great job of taking on that battle. And it's, again, for them, it's a massive challenge. And the fact that they were able to step to the plate and take their swings and knock it out of the park is an amazing feat. And and if we're willing to tell the story, we'll find a way to tell the story. And I think that's, especially with these 4, they've been able to do. And we have an amazing cast of around them, but they're really doing a lot of the heavy lifting, and And yeah, it's, as I say again, it's like, if we can find a way to tell the story, that is the most important thing. And we need everybody to tell the story. So in this production, we only have 8 of us. So we need everybody, all 8, to buckle down to find what their particular journey is of each character, and see how we all bring it together as a team. There's that word I keep bringing up. But yeah, find a way to tell the story, and that's at the heart of it.
Do you have anything you want to add, Trish?
Oh, I just think it's thrilling to get to witness people transform. I mean, it is this season of metamorphosis. To me, that's the very essence of what theater can be. That you get to see it in front of your very eyes, and I find it's so exhilarating to be inside of, to be one person and then another person when you take a hat off. That's, to me, that's magic. That's like playing dress up when you're a kid and like becoming another human, or witnessing somebody transform, which we do without costumes in our daily lives, but to actually witness it in a theatrical setting in the context of a story, to me, there's nothing more thrilling.
Absolutely. And I think that's a lovely place to end. So before we close, I just want to thank both of you for sharing so candidly and sharing lots of silliness today. And thank you to everyone who joined on YouTube Live and also shared your questions. It's always nice to hear from you. It's a joy to connect with you in this format because we can't be in person at this point. And please join us next Saturday at 10 a.m. for another Meet the Festival. And next week's will actually be with artists from the Play On Cabaret. So thank you, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.
I've lost my connection with YouTube. Just turn off your cameras. Thank you.